time for another Coffee with Kilroy. So grab a beverage of your choice. I'm having coffee. Surprise, surprise. And join me as we page through a book. I kind of like to call this a beverage in a book. So today we're going to look at The Race to Bastogne, a solitaire war game by Mike Lambo. If you have not heard of Mike Lambo, you have not been following my channel, or several other channels for that matter, because Mr. Lambo has been prolific in his designs and has come out with several books. This is the latest book that I believe that's come out in the series, and I've got this from Mr. Lambo, so I do want to say cheers. Thank you, sir, for sending this to me so I can page through and share with others and, most importantly, play. So you have Race for Bastogne. Others in this series include the Battles of Medieval Britain, Battles of Normandy, Beaches for the Brave, Ghost of the Jungle. And there's another one, I think the first one, or possibly the first one in the series, was Fields of Normandy, which I do not have. But there's several in this series. As you can see, there are different titles in this series, and there are different topics in this series. And not to be outdone, there are different approaches to those topics in this series. And this one takes yet a different approach in his line of solitaire war games here. When I say different approaches, a lot of his games, what I kind of consider are just an extenuation of your traditional hex and counter war game. He has a hex grid, and you're moving units on that grid. You're marking, noting units on that grid as they progress through the scenario. Other people, do different things with that. They either use trace paper, or they use actual miniatures, or they may make counters, and they handle the movement or keeping track of things on the board, so to speak, which is actually a page in the book, in various ways. When we get into this, you're going to see yet a different approach to that. But a lot of the games do that, but some of the games actually have a track, have like a linear track, and that you're keeping track of your progression on this track that's on a board, so to speak. There's the variety of topics, the variety of mechanisms, and the core mechanism of bringing it into a book format that you can take anywhere. I find very, very interesting, and kind of a novel approach, pardon the pun, in a market that is seeing a lot of that. I mean, there's other games out there. I'm probably going to do a kind of an exploration or culmination video of all the different books that I've been seen or played or experienced, and kind of talking about those and the different variety. But right now, Mike Lambo is kind of one of the leaders in that. He's got as many titles as others when it comes to that. So again, thank you, sir. Now let's get into the book. This is The Race to Bastogne, so this is going to be dealing with Battle of the Bulge, World War II. And if you, in the front cover here, and this is the latest, because you can tell, because it's got all the what I think are the books in the series here. So there's Fields of Normandy, and we've seen the rest of these: Battles of Normandy, Ghost of the Jungle, Battles of Medieval Britain, Beaches for the Brave, and The Race for Bastogne. They typically have an introduction talking about how to use this book, notes, rules, I should say, that going over how you play the game, and of course in any solitaire game or solitaire war game for that matter, the process or procedure is usually pretty important, because that kind of recreates the AI or the artificial intelligence or your opponent. So they're usually very procedural in nature. You have your player aid overview here. Then you have the missions. There's 12 missions in here, all dealing around Bastogne or the Battle of the Bulge, and that's on par with the rest of the books. The one thing I do like about this, his books are, there's not just 1, 2, or 3 missions in there. You've got 12 here, so you've got not only a lot of variety and replayability, but you also have on different topics and in somewhat of a different manner on each one of his books. You got your introduction here, and this is where how the book works. This is where this kind of changes a little bit from his other books, where the other ones are just really talking about notations, just mark it in the book, or again, you can figure out alternatives of how you want to keep track of that and keep your book pristine. But this one, he's added counters, so you can actually have some counters in the back that you can cut out or copy or however you want to make them, and then use them on the playing board or playing page or whatever you want to call it. So that is a little bit different, and that actually, to me, harkens back to another player in this space, or publisher in this space, I should say, Minden Games. They tend to have books that their battle game book series. This is a little bit spoiler. I haven't covered this one yet, but they'll have counters that you need to cut out or to copy or to make on your own. And so Minden has been known to have components, that you basically have to make outside the game and then bring into the game. And so he's actually offering that here. I don't think you have to have that. I mean, this just makes it easier to play. So it's not a must-have to play the game, where like in the Minden games, they typically are must-haves. This one just makes it easier. You can always use your own notation or however you want to keep track of what's going on the board. Suggested map annotations, so you can keep track of. So this is one way you might be able to keep track of objects on the or units on the board. So they gave you some sample of notations here. Again, his series keeps evolving. I mean, some of the first books really didn't go into this level of detail on how to keep track of everything, or they had different ways of keeping track of it. So as you go through this series, and I call it a series. I mean, they're really, the only connection is that it's a Solitaire Wargame book, and it's got the same designer. They vary in topics and sometimes in playability. So. But he's kind of evolving as he's going through this. Here's the rules. Here's your mission setup. Here's your mission maps. And so you've got a terrain effects chart. We're all familiar with that if you're playing war games. Your turn process. And again, this is where it comes into, the AI. You have to follow this process, and this is going to tell you who does what and when during the game turn. So you've got an explanation of that. This one's going to have orders. So there's going to be an orders chart. You've got some modifiers here. Terrain. You've got rules for smoke and recon. Then you have your enemy activation. And it looks like there's talking about facing in this, so that's something that I don't think all the other ones have, is the element of facing. So we're getting it a little bit more tactical and a little bit more detail in this one. So here's directional attacks. Again, that's probably where the counters come in a little bit for ease of play, is keeping track of facing and where the attacks are coming from. Revealing enemy units and facing here. So we're getting a lot more detail than some of his other books in this series. Flanking support, we're getting into a lot more tactical play. And again, these are all, again, common features of a tactical level World War II game, or any war game for that, any tactical level war game. Facing and movement and combat and the like are bread and butter for tactical war games. So this is the other games were a little bit more abstract in some of those elements, and maybe at a different scale, but this one really is getting into it. Minefield, rivers, adjusting the difficulty. That's one thing. It's always interesting in these games. If you find them too easy, you can adjust it. Find it too hard, you can adjust it. I mean, they're solitaire, right? So I mean, it's nobody's going to know how what you do and how you do it. It's for your gratification. Here's a player aid overview, kind of just telling you some key things to remember. Like some of the rules and some of the different actions, it looks like, and activate and reveal German units. So it might be good to, that might be something to copy and keep, off to the side to, as you're playing this. Again, one of the things I liked about his books is everything is usually right there on the page. You usually have a page of charts and then you have a page of the board. This here, when you have player aids, when you have counters, again, you're kind of going back and you're going into a little bit of the Minden games, how they do things of, you have a book, but there's a lot of stuff you have to construct outside that book or pull outside that book to, really play the game. And that you're starting to defeat the purpose of having it all in a book, right? But it all depends. Again, not essential. You can leave it in the book and still keep flipping back and forth and doing what you want to do. But the more that you start constructing things outside the book, you're kind of moving away from a book game. But again, at least in his designs, they're not essential. They're all just aids and something to help you play, not required. And then you get the typical format. You've got your mission, with all its key charts. You have your orders and the German units, train. So you've got everything you need to know to play the game, and the different charts that you're going to be rolling on to make up the orders or the AI in some instances. And then you have your playing board or playing page, the turn track. There's that facing hex, and then you've got your terrain on here as well. So this is the first mission, and then you're going to have 12 of these missions, and so each one is going to be laid out with all the key information you need to know for the mission and all the stuff for the board right there. So as I said, each one of these is interesting to look at, in that, I mean, they're highly playable. There's a lot of similarity in the rules. Not all of them have this exact same charts and setup, but several do. But he keeps moving a little bit. He keeps moving the needle, right? He keeps on moving a little bit, in my opinion, closer to a war game or a boxed war game. I mean, this one now has facing and the like. So we're getting a little bit more detail with each one of his designs, it looks like. So that's interesting. And again, these might not be your cup of tea or cup of coffee. They, you might you might not like solitaire games, or you might, you have to have hex and counter or playing something, play on vassal. So this doesn't really just fit into your likes or desired gameplay. So, and that's fine too. But if you like solitaire games or are interested in solitaire games and want a small format type game that still gives you a good decision space or a different decision space, then these definitely are something to take a look at. And there's a lot to, this is pretty much extremely hard here. There's a lot offered in this space now. Mr. Lambo has increasingly large series, I guess I should say. I mean, he's got 6 books, I believe, now in this series. So he's got a lot to offer. As I mentioned before, Minden's out there, Worthington's out there. There's Jamie Kirkpatrick. Kirkpatrick has a couple of books out there. Noah Patterson, I think, has a couple of books out there at least. So there's other ones out there. But this series, this and the Worthington series are to me are the most focused on what they're trying to portray, and And I think Lambo's series is more focused on, taking a war game, a hex and counter war game, to a book setting. Um, and the other ones kind of vary in some of the stuff they do. Worthington is kind of just taking some of their line of what I call static situational war games and taking those to a book. So I mean, each to their own, right? And they all have different levels of detail and quality and missions and replayability. So as I said, I might do a video that kind of canvases the lot of them, so that we all can see what's out there, or at least what I have. I only cover what I have. Typically only cover what I have. I might mention other games, but I try to feature games and books and what have you on stuff that I actually have in my collection. So imagine that. Why would I do that? Here's your suggested counters. And again, whilst no means necessary, so this isn't an actual requirement. It's not like some of the Minden games where you have to make the counters to use the game. This just helps you on ease of play, right? This, and mainly probably on the facing aspect of this. So, but you do get some counters here, and there you have it. So, and that gives you the back of the book, which basically gives you kind of a synopsis of the situation. This book is a solitaire war game. You play the game, and the book will provide the enemy. You will need a pencil, eraser, and at least 3, but preferably 5 standard 6-sided dice. The ideal is that you draw right on the pages lightly in pencil, allowing you to replay missions as and when you choose. Some people might decide to photocopy the maps, and others may even want to create their own counters or use miniatures or similar that they already possess. Some basic sample counters have been included at the end of this book, which you can cut out and copy and stick to a card if you wish. So there you have it. This is the latest and greatest from Mike Lambo. Again, thank you, Mike, for the copy. I really want to get into this one. This one looks like, this to me, I haven't played this one yet. I've played the other ones. This one appears to require a little bit more investment in understanding the rules and keeping track of certain things, because you have the whole facing element. You've got more of a tactical feel here and decision space, and that's fine. I like that. This is interesting where he's going in this series. Where do you think this is going? What do you all think about this game, this series, any of the other books in Mike Lambo's series, or any of the books that are already out there from other publishers? What is your thoughts on that? What do you think about these kind of games? I have some coffee with me here. And where this is going. Is this filling a much needed gap in our gaming space, or is this just not your cup of coffee? Anyway, thank you for spending some time with me. I know your time is precious, so anytime you spend with me is greatly appreciated. Have a good, I don't want to force you to have a good day, but I hope you have a good day. I hope you have a good day. Hope you get done what you need to get done. And it's rainy and a little bit cold and wet here today. But hey, I'm enjoying a cup of coffee with you all as you watch this. And thank you. I just really appreciate you all. Thanks for watching.